For more, Kethevane Gorjestani, our foreign editor, joins me on the set. Hello to you. Kethevane, how likely is it that Russia will be able to hold on to its military bases in Syria?
Well, they're definitely doing everything possible in order to hold on to those bases, but also preparing for the possibility that they might have to leave. This talks really started almost immediately after Bashar al-Assad fled Syria. And basically, it's about the short term, the medium term, and the long term. In the short term, the initial talks were mostly, please do not attack our military bases right now. And they agreed with HTS and other groups that they wouldn't attack those bases. This was for the short term. Now, the talks currently happening is more the medium term until there's an actual government or parliament in place in Syria. What happens to those bases? Are the Russians allowed to stay there for the time being until another decision can be made? And that puts us to the long term when there will be a new government. That government will decide whether or not the Russians are welcome to stay. And if they are welcome to stay, how are they staying? Do they have to reduce their footprint, or do they stay the way they are right now?
And why are these bases so important?
Well, for Russia, basically, they're two major bases on the coast, a couple smaller ones inland, but it's basically all of their operations in the region and beyond. It's the only military bases that are outside of the sort of former Soviet satellite states, if you will, and it is crucial as a hub, both at the time to protect Bashar al-Assad in Syria, but also to project power in the Middle East, as well as to start operations in Africa. And we talked a lot about the Russian presence in Africa, and it all comes from here. You see those two bases. There's the Tartus naval base that's been there since the late 70s. It's the only military base port for the Russians on the Mediterranean. And then you have the Kethevane air base, which was built in 2015, and that helped, of course, launch those airstrikes by the Russians in Syria. So important, those two bases, that in 2017, Bashar al-Assad and Vladimir Putin signed a 49-year extendable lease to have the Russians in those military bases.
And real quickly, what incentives would HTS and their allies have to allow the Russians to stay?
Well, that's a big question because, of course, the Russians and HTS and the other groups are no real friends, because the Russians have been really firing at them for years. So the HTS basically is having conversations with the people who killed some of their brothers in arms. So they will need incentives. We can see two main reasons for HTS and other groups to at least have some sort of relationship with the Russians. One is because they have said themselves that while they are backed by the Turkish government, they do not want to become a Turkish proxy in Syria. And to not become a proxy of one power, you need to have other people around to have a little bit of leverage. The Russians could come in. And the other thing is the economy, revenue. Rebuilding states is going to take a lot of revenue, and Russia has long been the #1 trading partner for the Syrians. And so the Russians could sort of sweeten the deal a little bit with some good trade deals, and possibly also when it comes to oil revenues or energy to help in that rebuilding process.
All right, Kethevane, thank you very much. Kethevane Gorjestani, our foreign editor.